All right, so far in NBA, this is all I've seen, and it hasn't been the group I work with, but other accounts I have access to. I saw the under 214 and 13.5 in the Knicks and Boston. Now, you got to remember, this has been an over series. I mean, Boston is 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread against the Knicks this year. 3 of the 4 games have gone over, and the average closing line was 227. So this is a big adjustment. It's 13 points off the average of their 4 games during the regular season, and yet the betting syndicate still went under in that game. Same thing with Denver, Oklahoma City, but they went opposite. Opened the total at 222. By within 35 minutes, that was up to 235. I didn't get a piece of that over, but I do know sharp accounts that I am able to peek into. They went over 222, over 223, and 223.5, and then backed off. But that's why you're looking at 225. The average closing line in that series, they had 2 overs, 2 unders, 234. So on adjustment of 12 points, the average close from the regular season to what the playoff opener was, and they're betting it up closer to what that average number is. So that one makes sense, but the Knicks and Boston is the opposite, where the season series average closing line was 227. They'd come out 214 and still gets bet under. So 2 totals in NBA, nothing in the NHL as far as Florida and Toronto goes. 3-1 to the under towards the season series. Florida owned them, won 3 of 4 games. I'm not seeing anything in any of the accounts, and I haven't seen anything really in the recreational accounts either. Like it's kind of balanced. The guys that just bet NHL, but it's good two-way action. Just as much money on Florida as the slight home dog Toronto. So it's a good game to book because they're not going to have much risk when this one goes off, even from the total. Seeing good two-way action there. That's why not too much movement on the side or the total in Florida, Toronto.
I see like -9 to 1 to win the series, but I'm expecting a close, more competitive than that. But I can't take the dog either, though. Sometimes these underdogs are so tough to take in these spots. But then again, I'm not going to lay with these big favorites too. This series has a potential to go 7 games, though. I don't like betting NBA sides, but I'll tell you what, the +9 seems like a lot of points to be given the Knicks in this game 1. The only thing I've got, like you said so far, Celtics, Derek White, over 23.5 points, assists, and rebounds. White is over the number here in all 4 games versus the Knicks this season. And, people say to me, over? How can you bet over? Don't you bet under? No, because you have to evolve. Bookmakers have evolved too with their lines. They know people bet under, so they adjust the numbers, sometimes over adjust. So I expect him over. Another solid game versus New York tonight, game 1. I'm going to go over on his points, assists, and rebounds.
We're going to take a look at Boston -9 with the over-under 212.5. So do we think the Knicks can cover? Do we like the over-under? I am going to lean towards a side in this one. We mentioned the Celtics are dealing with some injuries, but it's been almost a week since their last game. So Holiday, Brown, Tatum, they're all starting tonight. That's a big week of rest for them. And the Knicks closed out Detroit on Thursday. I just didn't think they looked that great. And I had a series bet on the Knicks to win that series, and I was nervous. I thought they didn't look that good. Brunson, everything was on his shoulders. And you look at their bench was just not contributing very much at all. So everything falls on the shoulders of these starters. I'm concerned about the Knicks offense outside of Brunson, the consistency of Towns, or the lack of consistency from Hart. These guys aren't making threes. They are big-time liabilities on defense. And what's concerning is in the 16 teams that made the playoffs, in that first series, they were 11th in offensive rating. And Detroit's not a great defensive team. So to be outside the average in offense in the first series against Detroit is a bit concerning. Boston was 3rd, and that was against a good defensive team in Orlando. Knicks were 0-4 against Boston in the regular season. And I went back and looked this up because I had this memory of last year that Boston was really good in games 1 of the series. And they were against Orlando. They won by 17 points. Last year in the first round, game 1, 20-point win against Miami. Round 2, game 1, 25-point win against Cleveland. Conference finals, that went to overtime. They did win by 5 points. But then the NBA finals, game 1, 18-point win against Dallas. Boston's getting healthy. They're rested. They do really, really well in the first game of a series. I'm going to take Boston -9. I think they lay the hammer to the New York Knicks. 1 day rest before they face the buzzsaw. Denver did have some success against OKC in the regular season, but how do you see the Denver Nuggets and Thunder game 1 going?
Yeah, I'm going to make this pretty short and sweet, and let's just put some numbers behind what we're both alluding to here, Andy. History says the Nuggets are up against it. Road underdogs in game 1, coming off a 7-game series and playing with 3 or less days rest. Just 4-19 straight up, 7-16 against the spread if their opponent has 4 or more days rest. And the Thunder, not only are they the best team in the league, they come into the series with 8 days of rest, Andy, after sweeping the Grizzlies in round 1. And, of course, the Nuggets just played the game 7 on Saturday. So massive rest edge for OKC. Like I said, best team in the league by a pretty substantial margin in my power ratings. Best regular season point differential in NBA history. I know they played with their food a little bit in those 2 games at Memphis. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I made the line Thunder -10.5, so showing some value in addition to the trend that I just mentioned. I would lay it with OKC here in game 1.
Brian Power, everyone. And listen, Brian, I really appreciate you said, hey, I'm not running super hot in these sports. And that's okay. We can talk about that, but we also need to talk about what you're running great in. And listen, number 1 in soccer on this website last 365 days is absolutely something that you should brag about. And it's something that people should invest in. That's a real long-term result. So tell us about the special that you have up at WagerTalk and about your soccer.
Yeah, and it's not just number 1 over the last 365 days, Andy. We're seeing it really well right now. 9-1-1 the last 11 releases. I mentioned when I first came on, had a 5% winner yesterday. Real nice. People were a winner by 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Not too often you can say that. We had Lazio. They scored a goal by the time my alarm went off. It was 6:30 in the morning. I looked at my phone. They were already up 1-0. That's nice. So the special offer, you get 30 days of soccer for only $99. That'll take you to the end of the domestic league seasons in Europe, all the cup finals as well. I have a play on Monday, WT.buzz/BP is obviously where you go to get it. And 42.1 units in all sports since February 19th. So I'm confident we're going to turn around baseball and the NBA as well after just a rough week. So there you go. And I'll have NBA and baseball up here in just a little bit. Going to post it as soon as I'm done talking to you. Yeah, I think this sets up to be an interesting series. I just want to give the people some background on how I view about these 2 teams, Andy, so far. I think many who follow me already know I'm a big believer in scoring differential being a better measure of performance than a team's actual won-loss record. That goes for any sport, not just baseball. But I would say this is a rare matchup for me, at least, where the respective run differentials are a bit misleading. The Reds, plus 34 in run differential so far. But here's the thing. They had that one game 24-2 win over the Orioles that skews things. One game like that has a tremendous effect, obviously, on a 35-game sample size. Meanwhile, the Braves, even after beating the Dodgers last night on Sunday Night Baseball, they're 3 games below 500, a -6 run differential. Still, Andy, I think they're a top 5 team in all baseball, despite being 3 games under 500. I would expect the Braves to play a lot better moving forward. Now, I know there's a lot of people that like to fade teams that just played Sunday night, but in this case, no travel for the Braves. It's the price more that scares me off them tonight. I know Bill just talked about, price and not wanting to, play favorites of this size regularly. And the other thing with Atlanta that I don't like is Smith-Shawver starting. He's got a 4.26 ERA and a 1.68 whip. Those numbers are not good, obviously. He's allowed a homer each of his last 3 starts. I don't really trust him going against the Reds lineup that is one of 7 in all of baseball to be averaging more than 5 runs per game. And you mentioned Brady Singer, Andy, starting tonight for the Reds. He's given up a homer in 4 straight starts. He often does get great run support, though. That's the thing. In the 6 games Singer has started so far, guys, the Reds have scored 42 runs, and that's even with them being shut out his last outing. Don't like either side here, but I do trust the lineups to score some runs. Over 8.5 is how I would play this series opener between the Braves and Reds.
Mariners and Athletics 1-2 in the American League West. Wow. Athletics won 4 out of 5. Mariners won 6 out of 7. Very interesting that this is a big game today. How do you see this game going?
It is a big game, and it's a really tough scheduling spot for the A's, who played in Miami yesterday and had to travel cross country to face Seattle tonight. I spoke with Adam Trigger about this. He's one of the 3 of us who have our show Total Bases, and we like to break down each and every game. And he was nice enough to send me something today. It's bringing this to my attention. And he said this is likely to be a common theme for them all season long, is Sacramento shares their ballpark with the A's And the minor league baseball team doesn't play on Mondays. They don't play a lot of minor league baseball on Mondays. So that means the A's get that stadium all to themselves on Mondays, which means Sundays to travel going from the East Coast to the West Coast. Keep in mind for that for the rest of the season, especially when you take a look at makes matters worse. The last 2 games in Miami were decided in the last inning. So those were high-intensity games, high-pressure games. And now they have to travel all the way out west and take on Seattle here. Seattle's had 2 of the last 7 days off, so they should be the much fresher team. They also enter off an embarrassing 8-1 defeat in Texas. Bryce Miller takes the mound. He's got a 3.52 ERA and a high 1.43 WHIP. His control has been terrible thus far with a 14.7 walk percentage. League average is 6.6. His 17th percentile ground ball rate is also a concern in this homer-happy stadium. Luis Severino has been solid this season with a 3.30 ERA, 1.17 WHIP. His barrel percentage is in the 70th percentile, while his walk rate is in the 66th percentile. And because he wasn't going to pitch in Miami, he's likely been sent back to Sacramento early, so that travel will not affect him, but it will affect all of the batters. When it comes to hitting, Seattle's second in the league with the WRC plus of 125. Sacramento is 8th at 110. The Mariners' key relievers had yesterday off, while Sacramento has had heavy bullpen usage as of late. This is the 14th straight game for the A's without a day off. It's going to reach 16 before the off day on Thursday. Look for the Mariners to be a much fresher team as this line comes out a bit cheap when you consider the travel situation for the A's here. I thought that was a cheap number, and I'm going to play Seattle. The Panthers once again proved they're very tough out in the playoffs. They dominated that Tampa Bay team, who many thought was going to win the series and possibly go on and represent the East. Florida held a 51.75 expected goal share in 5-on-5 play, and they won that game. They won that series in 5 games, which is very impressive. You know, that gives them one extra day to prepare for the Maple Leafs, who had a 3-0 series lead and played around it with Ottawa and put some doubt in everybody's mind. Despite winning the series 4-2, Toronto only had an expected goal share of 5-on-5 of 47.93. And keep in mind that Florida played the much tougher team. Comparing the 2 losing teams, Tampa Bay had a plus 75 goal advantage during the regular season, while Ottawa was just plus 9. So the Florida victory in less games was very impressive. Florida has gone to the Stanley Cup Championship 2 seasons in a row. Nobody has more experience with deep playoff runs than these Panthers. They won 3 or 4 meetings, as you mentioned, during the regular season with the Maple Leafs. Florida is a very physical team that takes high-quality offensive teams out of their rhythm and dictates the pace, and that's what they've done against Toronto. This talented Toronto team scored just 7 total goals in those 4 games against Florida. Believe me, I'm a Vegas Golden Knights fan, and Florida was the best team last year. They could have been the best team 2 years ago when the Knights won the championship. This is a well-coached team. They know how to win in the playoffs. And what's the big drawback about Toronto? It's an offensive team that struggles in the playoffs. I like Florida tonight, and I like Florida to win this series.